तत्परं पर्ह्याय विद्महे ज्ञानलिङ्गेश्वराय धीमहि तन्नो गुरुः प्रचोदयात्। ओम योगमहर्षि डॉक्टर स्वामी गीतानंद गिरी गुरु महाराज की जय। ओम पुदुवै कलैमामणि पुदुवै शक्ति योगचारिणी अम्मा जी मीनाक्षी देवी भवनानी गुरु माता की जय। ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। Namaste, vanakkam, swagatam, bonjour, buongiorno, buonasera, buonanotte, huyamore, boreda, kiora, salamat pagi, ayu bovan, ayushman bhava, shubh dinam, supraphat, salom. Welcome everyone to yet another Scintillating Saturdays, 101st week that we are coming together. And this week is very special because unlike the other 100 where I was on my own on the roof, I have Murali from Australia with me also here. So he is attending it live in person. Today we are looking at the Vishuddha Chakra. And last week we took a short break from the chakras to discuss about Shankaragiri Swamigal. And here we are talking about Vishuddha. The word Shuddha implies purity. Shuddha is purity. Vishuddha implies a superlative level of purity at all levels of being. Physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual, universal purity. A purity that goes beyond any human distinctions. It is only us human beings who create distinctions, divisions, and then practice discrimination. The universe doesn't practice discrimination because the universe understands all is one. Discrimination arises from a sense of duality, dvitiyam. And for the universe, there is no dvitiyam, it is all ekam. And that is what we need to realize. We need to realize that when we want to tap into this purity, the highest level of purity of the Vishuddha, we are stepping up the ladder of consciousness. We are stepping up through the ladder of consciousness. We have moved from Mooladhara to Swadhisthana to Manipuraka to Anahata and now Vishuddha, where we have moved to the most subtle level of the Panchamahabhutas. The solid state down at Mooladhara. Now it is very easy to have distinctions in solid state. It is quite easy to have distinctions even in the liquid state and up to the level of the thermal state, the gaseous state. But when it comes into the pure ether, pure space, it's very difficult to have distinction. It is very difficult to have divisiveness because it is all one. And the element, the Panchamahabhuta that is associated with this is the Akasha Tattva. Akasha Tattva. So this Akasha Tattva implies space where creation can manifest. Because for creation to manifest, you need space. And that is why the Akasha Tattva is related to the womb, the uterus of our divine mothers. Because it is in that space of the womb, the uterus, the uterine cavity, where there is the Akasha Tattva, that the fetus can be seeded and life can be nourished. What a beautiful aspect we find in our day-to-day life, this application of Akasha Tattva. The Akasha Tattva, though we call it space, though we call it ether, some people call it the sky. In fact, the Tamil equivalent word for Akash is Agayam. Akash is Agayam in Tamil. Then Agayam actually means the sky, up there. So the problem with Akasha Tattva is people tend to think it's out there, forgetting it is everywhere. It is out there, it is in here, it is everywhere. That is the speciality of the Akasha Tattva. And this Akasha Tattva that has the highest degree of freedom, because the molecules are very loosely packed in Akash. When you come down to the Mooladhara and Earth, Prithvi Tattva, there is a density of the molecules that are tightly packed and the least degree of freedom down at Mooladhara in Prithvi. But by the time you come up to Akasha Tattva in the Vishuddha Chakra, what is happening is that the molecules are more loosely connected. And so there is a greater degree of freedom. So along with the Vishuddha Chakra and Akasha Tattva, the most important quality that comes is freedom. And one of the freedoms that is highly venerated is the freedom of speech. It's supposed to be venerated. These days you get in trouble for speaking too much. You never know when people will disappear for speaking too much. Communication, Vak, which is communication, is connected to this chakra because there is a freedom in communication. When will you have the highest degree of freedom of communication? When what you think you say and what you say you do. So when there is purity of thought, word and action, it is at that point you will have the highest degree of freedom because you don't have to act like somebody else. You are just yourself. What you think you say, what you say you do. And there is that seamless connection that is flowing through every bit of your communication, verbal and non-verbal communication. And for communication to occur, we must first listen. Active listening. The whole process starts with active listening. Shravana. Then after you listen, it's not hearing. Many people hear, few listen. That is the reality of the human species. Many hear, few listen. Because listening implies you are awakening yourself to what is coming in. Hearing is just a passive process. Listening is always an active process. And when you listen, Shravana, you can then take it into your mind, into your heart, Manana, and then you can start to be established in it, Nididhyasana. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana is based on the process of listening. That is the foundation, the fundamental first step. And for that first step to occur, Shrotra, the ears should be working well. You should have a good system of the ears working so that you can hear and you can listen and then you can communicate. So all of this, the Tanmatra of the Akasha Tattva. So the Akasha Tattva is having a Tanmatra which is Shabda. Because Shabda is what you hear and Shabda is what you communicate, and Shabda is the vibration of the universe communicating to you every moment. The eternal vibration of the universe. The communicatory signals of the universe, the Shabda. That is the Tanmatra. You are starting to connect through the Akasha Tattva, Vishuddha Chakra and Shrotra. Shrotra Akashayo Sambandha Samyama Divyam Shrotram, says Maharishi Patanjali. When you realize the connection between Shrotra, the ears, and Akasha, Shrotra Akashayo, Sambandha Samyama, you perform Samyama on the connectivity between the Shrotra and Akash. It's at the Vishuddha Chakra. Patanjali doesn't have to say Vishuddha Chakra, it is implied. Shrotra Kashayo Sambandha Samyamat Divyam Shrotram. You start to have the divine capacity to hear. You start to tap into the universal radio signal. where the universe says, this is the universe speaking. Good morning, everybody. The news for today. You tap into that. Not the mundane radio stations. Not the mundane radio stations. You become capable of tapping into the divine radio station through that contemplation which occurs at the Vishuddha Chakra. At the throat, this center is correlated with the glossopharyngeal plexus. These are the various nerves, many of them are related to the vagal parasympathetic component, that are so important for our communication skill. The different laryngeal nerves, the recurrent laryngeal nerves, all of these are related to how we communicate. How we communicate. The nervous system, the nerves through which we communicate, are energized through the energy of the Vishuddha Chakra that enables us to have a purest form of communication. And this is related to the thyroid gland, the thyroid that is in this neck region. The thyroid that is so important for all the body metabolic functions. Your physical, mental, emotional growth is related to the thyroid hormones. If the thyroid hormones are not working properly, especially when you are a child, you end up with what they used to call cretinism, and you become what they used to call cretin. Nowadays we don't use these terms. Cretinism is still a medical diagnosis, where the whole IQ and everything comes down because the development has been retarded. And this is why it is so essential that we give people the space where they can communicate. When people are constricted, around the neck, they're not going to be able to communicate. You have a noose around somebody's neck and you say, now you tell me how you feel. God's sake. That's what the modern press does. It is so important to realize that it is that freedom to communicate. And this is why, especially with children, they have to have the space where they can express themselves. If the child doesn't have the space to express itself, how will this freedom develop? How will this communication develop? How will this connection with their own thought, word, action, complex, how will it ever come? The Vishuddha Chakra is governed by Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva is the Nilakanta who drank the poison, hala poison. In Tamil we call it ala. We don't have a ha in Tamil, so we have ala. Ala munda arumai nayakane, ala munda arumai nayakane, adiyum andamum illa arutperunjodiyen, ala munda arumai nayakane, ஆதியும் அந்தமும் இல்லம் அருட்பெருஞ்சோதியன் ஆலமுண்ட அருமை நாயகனே. He is Nilakanta. The throat goes blue because of the poison, hala poison. What is the symbology? You see, Shiva is the principle of transformation, eternal transformation, constant transformation, because the only thing that is constant is change. That transformative principle of Lord Shiva, in order for transformation to occur, the negativities may have to be dissipated. You may have to swallow it in order to go on with life. They say, okay, come on, it is unpleasant, just swallow it and go on. What is the process here? You swallow in order to digest and transform. Here that transformation, remember metabolism of the thyroid, burning up, metabolism. You are transforming so that the very poison that would kill you enables you to become a better you. The poison becomes the transformative agent. As I say, that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You learn to digest the poison. How do you digest the poison? By expanding your perspective. Because poison in a cup will kill me. That same poison in a cup, if I put into the water supply of this village, will clean the water supply, eradicate all the microorganisms and make the water fit for drinking. Why? Because the poison has got diluted. And then, what do? I put it into the ocean and it does nothing because the ocean is infinite. Anything next to infinity is zero. Any number next to infinity is zero, including infinity minus 1. When you have that highest perspective that comes through Vishuddha, where you are able to put your problems, your poisons, and look at the perspective by enhancing the degree of freedom, what happens? You dilute the poison, and the very poison that would kill you becomes the medicine that will make you stronger. Because medicine is nothing but dilute poison, and poison is nothing but concentrated medicine. And this is what this is empowering us. So Lord Shiva as the symbol of this. And so the Gayatri Mantra invokes him by saying, Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Vak Vishuddhaya Dhimahi Tanna Shivaha Prachodayate Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe. That Purusha, that pure consciousness, Vak Vishuddhaya Dhimahe, you are enabling my communication to be at the highest level of purity. Thought, word and action have all become one, seamlessly one. Vak Vishuddhaya Dhimahi Tanna Shivaha Prachodayat. That transformative principle is invoked and evoked when you work on this. Now this chakra has 16 petals. And the 16 petals each have their own Bija Mantra. And these Bija Mantras are based on the vowels that we find in the Samskrita Varnamala, with the potentiation of the and then the ng. Remember our potentiation, the A becomes the becomes the ang. So, ang, ing, ung, ring, ling, eng, ing, ong, ang. And the 16 petals as if, you have them around your neck. Remember they are going around you? It's like you have one of those old European dresses which have these things around your neck. Maybe that's where the energy gave them that idea. You have this beautiful energy clockwise spiraling around. Ang, ing, ung, ring, ling, eng, ong, ang. And that practice goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper as you awaken to these beautiful energies. And the Dara Bija, the Bija for the chakra itself, is hung. I always say it's like you're hung by your neck. Okay, so you're hung. Remember, hung. The ha becomes the hum becomes the hung. And this is why the potentiation, because the sound that has to be made, the exoteric sound that has to be made is with the nga. That is what activates it. And then the esoteric sound which is produced, the aftertone will be the So the hum will be the internal sound. But for the internal sound to manifest, you first have to make the external sound. So you have to make the sound hung. When that sound of hung, then the residue of that sound will become the hum. But if you make hum, you are going no place. And this is why the living tradition of a Guru Shishya Parampara is essential. Otherwise, all the books say hum. Yes, they say hum. Because hum is what is to be produced as a result. It is the end result. It is not the first part of the equation. It's the first part of the equation you have to do. Second part of the equation will happen on its own. And that is why this ha, with a hung, and a beautiful uplifting hung, that the energies go out and come back in as you chant hung, that type of beautiful connectivity is there. And this Bija Mantra is a mantra that enables us to tap into Those beautiful energies of the Vishuddha. Now these energies are energies that are very subtle energies. Because remember, Akash as a tattva, Akasha tattva is the subtlest of the Pancha Mahabhuta. So compared to Prithvi, which is solid state, Apas, which is the liquid state, Tejas, which is the thermal state, Vayu, which is the gaseous state, now you are into the ethereal state. You are into pure space. So it's very, very difficult. There are no neon signboards there. So it becomes a very difficult practice if one is not careful for it. And this is why when we work on the Vishuddha, we are enhancing our freedom of communication. We start to communicate as we are meant to communicate in a seamless manner. Long ago, I composed a Tamil song where I talk about this. 3 aspects: thought, word and action. They have to come together. Sindai. Sindanai or Sindai is thought. Sol is word. Sayal is action. And they have to come together. Integration is what yoga is about. So, Sindai sol sayalum ஒன்றாய் விளங்கிடவே வாழ்வோமே. சிந்தை சொல் செயலும் ஒன்றாய் விளங்கிடவே வாழ்வோமே. சிந்தை சொல் செயலும் ஒன்றாய். The 3 have to come together. That is what is happening here. And so then you are free. See, once you speak the truth, you don't have to remember anything. It is when we speak lies that we have to use up our memory disk, the internal memory disk, to remember all the stuff we said, and we have to remember what lie we told to whom at what time. And that overloads our system and slows down everything. When you're having that state of being, your thought, word and action are one and the same, you become energy efficient. This is what happens with these practices. Now for this practice, to enhance it, the Sarvangasana is given as a very important practice for this. Because the Sarvangasana creates a natural compression at this throat region. And along with that, the Jalandhar Bandha, which is the jugular lock, where we lock the jugular area. The Jalandhar Bandha and the Sarvangasana creates a natural Jalandhar Bandha. Now people say, okay, can I do Halasana? It also does that. Well, it does it. But you see what happens is with Halasana, because the legs are straight out, the energy gets dissipated a bit. Whereas what you are doing here is in Sarvangasana, the whole energy now is coming down. It's as if a column of energy is coming down straight into this region, and the focus of the energy. It's like, when they set up these borewell devices, and they take something and they go into the earth, and it keeps on going down, 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 until they have that long borewell and you hit water. That type of effect is happening when you do the Sarvangasana. So the energy that is coming down, because now the energy movement has been changed. Now the Viparita Karani also does it, but not to the level of Sarvangasana. So Viparita Karani is also okay. But Viparita Karani has an effect which is more sort of geared towards the middle of the body rather than the throat. This is how the energy flows. People say, what does it matter? In both of them, your legs are up, and in both of them, you have a tightness here because, especially if you're a bit obese, it becomes a bit uncomfortable to breathe in this position. No, they're not the same. Halasana is not the same as Sarvangasana because the way the feet move, the feet are placed in a different way. And again, because what is happening is that the toes are on the ground, the way your body is balanced is already different. So, someone will say at the throat the effect is the same. No, you have to look at the wholesome approach. And that is why when the legs are pointed up, you have that whole energy current, energy column coming down and working on that Vishuddha area. And it is like you are unblocking all the blocks that are there. Because there are a lot of blocks. We have a lot of blocks in communication. We are very bound. We are bound by our samskara, vasanas. We are bound by the klesha, the raga, dvesha that is there. We are bound by a lot of things. And that is why freedom has always been the goal for so many. As Tagore says, where the mind is without fear, into that heaven may my country awaken, he says. You want that highest degree of freedom. Freedom doesn't mean to do whatever you want. Freedom means to be responsible for the choices you make. That is what freedom means. Freedom means to be responsible for the choices you make. It doesn't mean the freedom to go out and goof off. That's not freedom. That's another type of bondage. And when we do the Sarvangasana, a natural Jalandhar Bandha is produced. And this area, you start to harmonize. And so disorders like the thyroid disorders that are very much related to an imbalance at the Vishuddha level. From a Yogacharya point of view, thyroid disorders, metabolic disorders are very much related to a malfunctioning of the Vishuddha. Now, I don't mean the Vishuddha is malfunctioning. When I say malfunctioning, I mean that we have blocked the energies. I reiterate the fact that the chakras are perfectly harmonized and normal. It is us who are, not connected to them. We have lost the connection. So all these practices are reconnecting us to the energies. People who have issues with communication, they find that they are not able to communicate freely. The Sarvangasana, the Jalandhar Bandha would again help a lot. And then there is a very beautiful pranayama that works on this Akasha Tattva. Because the Akasha Mandala is an oval shape, like an egg. Imagine one of your Easter eggs. It's one of those colored Easter eggs. And normally, Swamiji would say it is magenta. A magenta Easter egg. An oval which is magenta is the mandala for the Akash, Akasha Mandala. Now sometimes Swamiji has also said a white and black oval where half is white, half is black. But most of the time, though he did say it, we have always used the magenta oval. So you can do the Mandala Dharana on the Akasha Mandala where you have this white board and you have in the center a very nice magenta oval and you place it and you go through the practice of the Mandala Dharana where you focus above it, you focus below it, then close to the top of it, close to the bottom of it, and then coming into the middle, and you lose yourself. You lose yourself into the energies of that mandala, and by losing yourself into the energies of those mandala, what happens is the energies are all connected. So it is like instead of separation, you have a sense of oneness with the energies. Now the pranayama practice, which is the Akasha Mandala pranayama, is a pranayama which you create an oval in your own body. And so from the base of the spine to the throat. So the dimension is base of the spine to the pit of the throat, Kantakupe. So what happens is this base of the spine to the throat, you are going to create an oval that on your right side as you breathe in, again clockwise always. As you breathe in, you are going to be moving the energies in a semi-oval. I nearly said semicircle. A semi-oval on the right until it comes to the throat. And as you breathe out, from this throat, you go down on your left side, continuing that clockwise movement, back down to the base of the spine. So breathing in on the right, coming up to the base of the, so from the base of the spine to the throat, breathing out, throat to the base of the spine. This is a half oval, this is the other half of the oval, and you have two parts coming together, a whole, the oval. So there is the oval inhalation, exhalation, inhalation, exhalation, inhalation, exhalation. So it is a Sukha Pranayama pattern that is used here. If you look at these practices, as we have seen, At Mooladhara, you have the Sukha Purvaka, the 4 components. At the Swadhisthana is Sukha Pranayama. At Manipura, the Loma Pranayama, breathe in, hold, breathe out. At the Anahata, we had the Viloma Pranayama, breathe in, breathe out, hold out. And now at the Vishuddha, you again come back to the Sukha Pranayama pattern. But the visualization, the experiential awareness is of you having this beautiful magenta oval that is based between the base of your spine and your throat. And as you breathe in on the right side, you come up from the base of the spine to the throat. And as you breathe out, from the throat back to the base of the spine. This is the type of energy work that is part of this. Now, when we are doing this practice, you don't apply the Jalandhar Bandha. The Jalandhar Bandha is used separately, Gurulin. So, Jalandhar Bandha is its separate unit. Here, you are just sitting in a comfortable, well-aligned, spine-aligned position. And as you breathe in, you visualize that semi-oval on the right, from the base of the spine up to the throat. And as you breathe out from the throat on the left side, going down to the base of the spine. A small breathing in, and then the breathing out. The breathing in, and the breathing out. So this type of practice is a very important practice. This is the Akash Mandala Pranayama. So the Akasha Mandala Pranayama along with the Akasha Mandala Dharana, which is a concentrative contemplative practice, along with the Sarvangasana, along with the Jalandhar Bandha, all of these are enabling us to reconnect. Now in the image Swamiji has for the Vishuddha, he used to show that the Devi is having a bow. Now each of the chakras also has a Devata and a Devi. I don't go much into that because those are teachings that are at another level. But the Devi is having a bow with many arrows. And Swamiji used to often say that, this is the shooting the barbs through our words. We are constantly shooting arrows at people with our words, and we have to be careful of that. Because often a major form of violence in the world today is through our speech. We hurt each other, we hurt ourselves through the speech. And this is why when the Vishuddha energies are moving, our speech becomes more compassionate, we develop empathy, and our communication will be one of care. It will be a careful, which means full of care, communication. And this is why here what we need to understand is that in the Vishuddha, the Vahana, each of the chakras has its own Vahana. Vahana means a vehicle. And Swamiji used to say the energies in the chakras, they are energies where there is the Vahana. The Vahana is the transmitter. It's the agent of movement. So we say that, Durga has a tiger, Shiva has his Nandi, Ganesha has his Mushika. Each of the Devas and Devis, they have a Vahana. But in the chakra, the Vahana, Swamiji used to tell us is that the Vahana is actually like the neurotransmitter, the neuromodulators that are enabling these energies of the chakra to come into our nervous system and function through us. It's all psychoneuroimmunology, all psychoneuroendocrinology, thousands of years ago. Here, the image is of a white elephant. And whenever we used to discuss this, Swamiji used to remind all of us, he said, that white elephant is the Vahana because your speech can be a white elephant. What does that mean? A white elephant means that it eats a lot but does no work. And companies which go bankrupt are called, white elephants because, you have so many salaries to pay, millions of dollars in salaries, but there's no profit coming in. A white elephant is like that. And in the olden days, when a king wanted to bankrupt another king, he gifted him a white elephant. And this is why Swamiji said we have to be very careful that our speech doesn't cost us more than what it gets us. And I think all of us, we really, really need to watch our speech, because we often say things and we don't know what trouble we are getting into. This is why to be full of care, to be careful in communication. Because communication implies that we are creating an interaction with another being. Now, communication can be on multiple levels. It could be intrapersonal, where you communicate with yourself. Now, many people, their intrapersonal communication is horrible. They have such negativity about themselves. They are constantly negative self-talk. We have to be very careful with that. That is that poison, the hala poison that Nilakanta Shiva has to, swallow and eradicate. So, the intrapersonal communication, then the interpersonal. How do you communicate with others? And then how do you communicate? How do you communicate with the universe? Transpersonal communication. These terms Ammaji introduced to us many years ago. Ammaji is an amazing wordsmith. Intrapersonal, interpersonal and transpersonal. How do you communicate with the universe? Is your communication based on gratitude? Or are you one of those perennial complainers? The universe gets tired of you. Always complaining from morning to night about something or the other. When you start to realize the gift of life, when you start to realize how much you have been given, your communication will be filled with gratitude. Your communication will be filled with respect, love, sharing. I think this is a very important development we all need, is to shift from communication which is based on what can I get when I communicate. What can I get when I communicate? What is important is, it's not about what can I get. So if I say something nice to you, what will I get? Oh, so I'm going to say something nice to you. And if I say something nasty to you, what will happen? Sagin raga dvesha. I say something nice to get something nice, and I don't say something nasty because I don't want to get punched in the nose. All this communication is biased. All this communication is limited. It is finite. The communication that comes through the Vishuddha state is infinite. Remember freedom? Because your communication is not based on what you will get, but is communication for the sake of communication itself. That is the purity of communication. It is like yoga for the sake of yoga. That's all. Finished. Full stop. Katham. Yoga for the sake of yoga. Not yoga for the sake of better sex, yoga for the sake of diabetes, yoga for the sake of humanity, yoga. Hey, nothing. Leave all of that nonsense away. Yoga for the sake of yoga. Communication for the sake of communication. Not for any ulterior motive. Not for any vested interest. That is the poison. The hala poison. Unconditional, pure communication. Now there are many people who think, oh, okay, that means I'm going to go out and tell you all how rotten you are and insult you to your face. No, that is violent communication. That is why our Shastras tell us, speak the truth, speak the pleasant truth, speak the unpleasant truth pleasantly. So important to realize that. that whatever you say, whatever your speech is, what is your speech? Can it be speech that is pure? Can it be unbiased communication? Can it be without any vested interest, untarnished? I was waiting for that word to come. Untarnished, unblemished. Unblemished, that's another word. Unblemished, untarnished communication. That is what Vishuddha is all about. May we all be worthy of tapping into these energies. May we be worthy of these energies flowing through us. May that Tat Purushaya flow through us in a way that our communication is seamless, pure, unblemished, untarnished. Because at that point we truly communicate. And yes, Deolal ji, the highest level of communication is silence. That is why Dakshinamurti Shiva sits in silence with his students. I'm very far away from that. Mauna Vyakya Pragadita Para. He's in Mauna. Silence is the highest level of communication. You know, when you really love someone, you just have to be with them. You don't have to say anything. Everything is taken care of. The highest level of teachings is just to be present. Just to be present. And the teachings flow. You know, this whole idea that somebody has to teach you, it is so blemished. Mauna Vyakya Pragadita Para. Brahmatattvam yuvanam Vashishtan deva sadhrishigane avatam brahmanishtai acharyendram karakalite chinmudrananda murtim swadmaramam mudita vadanam dakshinamurtim ide. May we be worthy that the teachings can come to us in silence. May we find that space within us where the purest form of communication, transcending the need to say anything. You know, when Rama and Sita meet each other for the first time on earth, Pirindavar Kodinal Pesal Vendumo, says Kamban. When Mahavishnu and Mahalakshmi, when they who were separated come back together on earth, those who were separated, when they come back together, our words needed. Our words needed. What a beautiful thought. What a beautiful thought. Thank you so much for being with me today. And we continue our journey of the Scintillating Saturdays through all this Yoga Day mayhem and madness that is going on. But we keep it going. Love you all so much. Thank you for being on the other side of the computer so that I can keep doing what I'm doing. And thank you for Murali being here in person with me all the way from Australia. It is so important. Thank you. Dhanyavadaha. Nandri. Vanakkam. Hari Om Tat Sat.